Alright, what is up you guys, and welcome back to the Progressive Skills in English Level 3 coursebook. In today's recording we're going to be going over the reading section, so let's hop right in. Here we have exercise A, preparing to read. So let's answer these two questions and then start reading. So here we have, how many hours a day do you use a mobile phone? Well, obviously this will be entirely up to you. For me, I'd personally say around 2 to 4 hours. I know that's, I think, normal nowadays, or slightly higher than normal. And for 2, do you think mobile phones are dangerous for your health? Why or why not? Personally, I do. For my health, I do, especially when it comes to social media, right? I'm the type of person that tends to overcomplicate things, right? So when looking at people on social media, I can't help but think that sometimes my life is not as good as it should be. I know that's something that's bad to say, but you know, you see yourself comparing your life and your situation to others all the time, and you think the thing that you have to know and believe in is that social media only shows you the good side and not the bad or the ugly. So always keep that in mind. Okay? Now let's go to exercise B, reading and reacting. So look at the text on the right, and let's actually read this before we look at the questions. So here we have, mobiles kill, say scientists. In the latest health scare, scientists have proved that mobile phones are killers. They cause cancer and diseases of the brain, like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. And I quote, "They are as dangerous as car exhaust and coffee," says one leading health organization. Just half an hour a day with your phone stuck up to your ear is enough to up the risk by 40%. And if you're a teenager, your softer skull lets more of the deadly waves in to fry your brain, unless you wear a headset. Alright, pretty interesting. Now let's go to the questions. What kind of text is this? I'm guessing this is by, looks like it's a newspaper article. Okay? And 2, what reaction does the writer want from the audience? How does he try to get it? Well, based on what we read and his style, he basically wants to stop people from using mobile phones, or to just have them very worried, right? He hopes to, he wants to use this he wants people to stop using mobile phones, and to get his point across, he's using very emotional language. So think of words like scare, killer, deadly, even fry, right? And also by linking mobile phone to, known illnesses such as cancer, Alzheimer's, and Parkinson's. Okay, and also comparing waves to car exhaust and coffee. What does the text say? Make a list of the statements about mobile phones. Well, the text says that mobile phones are killers. We'll also say that they are as dangerous as cancer, etc., right? Half an hour use a day is dangerous in itself. And also using a headset removes or reduces the danger a little bit. Okay? 4, what is your reaction to the statements? Explain your reaction. Okay, again, this is going to be entirely up to you and your point of view. For me, I'll say that mobile phones are definitely not killers, right? Are they as dangerous as cancer and diseases of the brain like Alzheimer's? Not necessarily. I don't believe that. Half an hour use a day is dangerous. Again, I'm going to have to disagree with that. And using a headset, removes or reduces the danger. I sort of agree with it, right? Because you have all sorts of bacteria and germs on your phone from using it all the time, that I don't think it's the best idea to have it up to your face when talking, especially for prolonged periods of time. So I'd say, get a headset, get some Bluetooth earphones, right? But don't hold it up to your face or head. Okay? Now let's go to exercise C, developing critical thinking. Read some statements from readers of this text. Which ones do you agree with? Again, similar to the final part of exercise B, I think that the journalist has misinterpreted the research. He just didn't understand it. And I think he has a pretty solid point in trying to get people to fear mobile phones. The headline is sensational. There may be some dangers from mobile phones, but they don't kill. This, yes, I believe in this 100%. The headline is sensational. Yep, there may be some dangers. Yes, we do. Or, sorry, yes, there are some dangers, but they don't kill. I agree the problem is exaggerated. Maybe the risk goes up by 4%, but not by 40%. Again, I agree with this. I think that the information must be true because it comes from a reliable source. I'm going to have to disagree. You're going to have to use logic here, right? Just because it's from a reliable source doesn't always mean that it's going to be 100% true. I want to verify this information by reading the data. The source is a leading health organization, but which organization did the actual research? The article doesn't say. Right, so it seems that whoever wrote this statement didn't really know what to believe. They were basically sitting on the fence, which I can understand, but again, you're going to have to do your own research if, you're worried about the dangers of mobile phones. Maybe the research comes from a company which makes headsets, so it has a vested interest in this health scare. Again, maybe, right? This was used as an ad, right, for people to buy more headsets. But that may be true. I don't know. I don't agree. He didn't misinterpret it. He misrepresented it. He understood the research and then wrote something which was deliberately shocking. Maybe. I'm not too sure. I think he did it on purpose, right? So either he didn't understand the research at all, or he wrote an ad or something. Okay? So that was exercise C. Again, these are just my thoughts and opinions. Yours might be different, and that's okay. Okay? Now let's go to the vocab box. Here we have deadly, exaggerate, fry, as in damage with heat, killer, as in something that kills, misinterpret, misrepresent, reliable source, scare, up, verify, and vested interest. Okay, so that was the first page of reading, you guys. Now let's move on. Alright, you guys, so now let's move on to the next page. Here we have exercise A, recognizing text type. What sort of texts can you see on page 119? That's the opposite page. Choose a type or choose a text type for each one. You can use one text type more than once. Explain your choice. Okay, so here we have an advert, blog, journal article, newspaper article, and website article. So let's take a look at A. Here we have the Daily News. So the Daily News, I already know that this is a newspaper article, right? This is the news. So red meat kills regular meat eaters at 13% greater risk. According to a recent study, the risk of death at an early age rises by 13% for people who eat red meat. And that's not all. If you scoff meat which is processed like burgers or salami, your chance of death ups by 20%. Okay? So this, I already know this is a newspaper article. Okay? Now let's go to B. We know that meat is a killer, so we don't eat it anymore, right? Wrong. Okay, so I can see a website at the bottom, and this tells me that this is a website article, right? So the death risk from meat is well known, but we carry on eating it. But here's the latest news. It turns out that meat kills more people than we thought, right? So this is a website article. C, 15th April. I think, let me read it and then we'll see. So 15th April, hi there. How you doing? Today my blog is all about meat and the problems it causes. So many of you have been in touch asking for my views that I thought I'd say, once and for all, where I stand. Well, I like meat, but I must admit that all these health reports, and it goes on. So we do have a website at the bottom, but look, if you focus on the website itself, it says Joe's Daily Blog. So this is a blog, okay? Let's go to D. Excuse me. Report advises red meat eaters to moderate their intake. The advice comes as a result of the result of a study which lasted 24 years. It recorded the diet of more than 120K men and women. During this period, over 20K participants died, and the analysis revealed that premature death was higher in the group that ate the most red meat. However, this is not the only study which has looked at this issue. In Japan, researchers studied over 50,000 participants over a period of 16 years. Their findings showed that there was no link between eating meat in moderation and mortality. Similarly, the Harvard School of Public Health reported recently that there was no connection between the consumption of unprocessed red meat and diseases such as cancer and diabetes. They did, however, find a link between these diseases and the consumption of processed meat. Right, pretty interesting. So D is probably either, again, a newspaper as well, or a journal article. Okay? Now let's go to exercise E, or sorry, not just E, text E. Is meat more dangerous than cigarettes? Wow, what an overstatement. Anyway, there are 3 big killers in the West. They are heart disease, cancer, and strokes. There is a link between all 3 of these and the excessive intake of animal products such as meat and dairy goods. This is the clear conclusion of studies which compare earthly death in meat eaters and vegetarians. To put it into perspective, American Institute for Cancer Research claims that cancer, which is caused by diet, is at about the same level as cancer which is caused by smoking. The claim comes of the work of Dr. Elliot Marshall, who has looked into the relationship between meat eating and major causes of death in the West. Okay, I'm guessing again this is probably a website article. Okay, let's go to F. Top quality at bargain prices, best quality meat from local farmers, weekly market with fresh local produce. Wednesdays 9 to 3 p.m. Market Square reading. This is an ad, right? An advertisement, or you could also say an advert. G. Meat which is processed may be more dangerous for your health than unprocessed meat. Studies which were conducted by WHO found a link between processed meat and premature death. However, there is other research that disproves these findings. Again, I'll say that this is a website article as well. Okay, so these were some of the different texts that you probably see on a week or a week-to-week basis. Now let's go to exercise B. Preparing to read, study the assignment on the right and write some research questions to prepare for this assignment. So let's take a look at the assignment here. Here we have assignment 1, internet research. So recently there have been stories in the press about the dangers of eating meat. But what is the truth behind these stories? Research the topic on the internet, and 1, decide for yourself about the dangers of eating meat, and 2, be prepared to talk about the way that the internet media has reported the topic. Okay, so can you guys write some research questions, right, just to prepare for this assignment? I would suggest you do. Just pause the video, go ahead and write some questions, maybe 5 or 6 questions, and then come back and see if yours are similar to what I'm about to say. Okay, so some questions regarding this topic. We could say, is meat really that dangerous? Right, that's a question. And we could also ask about the different kinds of meat. So are all kinds of meat bad or dangerous? We could also say, does the danger depend on the kind of meat or the way it is cooked? Okay, so these are 2 important questions. And how do we know that eating meat is dangerous? Okay, that's also a big question. How do we know what is the research and what does the evidence say? And also, how big is the risk? You know, obviously compared to cigarettes, maybe cancer, Alzheimer's, we've seen it all from the media, so we have to know how big is the risk itself, right? Like using your phone has a risk, but you don't see people shying away from using their phones on a day-to-day basis. So always be ready to take a look at the evidence. Right. So again, we're gonna have to read the texts. Not exactly. We're just gonna have to find out what exercise C wants. So C, understanding text. Read the texts. 1. In which texts, can you find a reliable source, evidence from experiments, and sensational language? Basically, what sensational means is to cause public excitement, right? So sensational here means public excitement or to stir controversy. Okay, so this is sensational. Now let's take a look. So for reliable source, let me take a look. Actually, right here, I think I saw it. Yeah, the big one. Text D, we have right here because it looks like a journal article, right? This is a reliable source. Why? Because it looks like it's a journal article and they don't really lie, I hope. Also, text E, right? If you take a look down here, we have www.careaboutcancer.org. So this looks like it's a cancer charity, right? So I'm hoping that it's a reliable source in this case. Alright, now let's go to the second point, evidence from experiments. Okay, also D as well, we have some evidence, right? Because they did research, or actually they cited two different research and their evidence. Also, well, we could take a look at E as well, right? We do have some here, so you could consider it. I personally don't, but you could take a look at E. It looks like it has evidence from experiments by citing the American Institute for Cancer Research. And also, we have G right here. Meat which is processed may be more dangerous by who, right? This right here. So this is considered an evidence from an experiment as well. Right, let's go to 2. Does the information on page 119 answer your research questions from exercise B? If not, what extra research must you do? Okay, so is meat real? I'll ask my questions. You should ask yourself, does the texts do the texts answer your question? And see for yourself. So is meat really dangerous? To be honest, so far from what I'm seeing, it looks like it's dangerous, but not to the point where it's that bad, right? Are all kinds of meat dangerous? Not. I would say that I don't think so, right? There's a difference between processed meat and just normal meat, so not all kinds of meat is dangerous. Does the danger depend on the kind of meat or the way it is cooked? Well, from what I've read, again, not much depending on the kind of meat, so I'll probably have to do more research on that. But we do know, just logic, that the way a meat, just meat is cooked will heavily influence what happens to our bodies, right? So if you undercook meat, you have a higher risk for basically bacteria and germs to get into your body. What else do we have? One more question we have. How do we know that eating meat is dangerous? This one is cited mostly in a lot of texts here, and we're taking a look at the evidence, right, from our research. How big is the risk compared to, for example, cigarettes or cancer? I'd say not as much. From what I've read from all of these, not as much, but I definitely have to do more research on that one. Okay, so this was exercise C2. Let's go to number 3. What are the actual facts about the dangers of red meat in these sources? Okay, so actually I remember reading one here. Again, text D has a lot of stuff, so we'll say text D because it says red meat is more dangerous than other meat, and there is no link between eating moderately and early death. Okay? Also, 1 second please. What are the actual facts? Okay, one more fact is in text E, if I'm not mistaken. Diet has the same risk as smoking, but not particularly meat, also dairy products. Okay, so you can see they compared between meat eaters and vegetarians, but they said that there's a link between disease, cancer, and strokes with excessive intake of animal products, so meat and dairy goods. All right. What else? Let's take a look at 4. Why are some phrases in the newspaper article in speech marks? Well, this one's pretty straightforward and simple. Well, the writer or publisher, whoever writes these, is not sure, right, of if these words / statements are true. So they're simply quoting a source. Okay? So there's a difference between quoting a source and using it as your own. All right? Now let's take a look at exercise D. Match the words from the vocab box with their definition. So let's take a look at the vocab box. Here we have chance, excessive, findings, intake, moderation, mortality, premature, scoff, and turnout. Okay. Then we have here some definitions. A reasonable amount. A reasonable amount here means in moderation, or simply the word moderation. Okay? And by the way, it's a noun. So what part of speech is each word? So is it a noun, adjective, or verb? So we'll say moderation is a noun. Be discovered, come to light. This is turn out, and turn out is actually a verb. C, before the correct time, and this means premature. Okay, so before the correct time is premature, and premature is an adjective. D, consumption, for example, eating, while this is intake, right? When you say excessive intake, that means excessive eating, for example. Okay, so intake here is a noun. E, death. Death is obviously mortality. What's the opposite of mortality, you guys? It's immortality. I added im as a prefix. Okay, just a quick tip. So E, death, mortality in this case, and it's also a noun. F, eat quickly and in large quantities. Well, this is scoff. Scoff, okay? Scoff here is a verb. G, possibility. Another word for that is chance. Okay? So chance, possibility, it's a noun. H, results from research. This is called findings or evidence. Both are correct. So findings, and findings is a noun here. I, too much or too many. This means excessive. Okay? When something is excessive, it means there's too much or too many. So excessive as is an adjective here. Okay? E, developing critical thinking. Does the sensational story in the newspaper have any value, or does it just sell newspapers? Personally, I mean, obviously to each their own when it comes to opinions, but I'll say that the sensational story or stories in the newspaper, to me, they don't really have any value. What I see is just a couple of writers and journalists that just want to sell, right? So they'll use any means necessary. I'm not saying what they're saying is wrong or what they're writing is wrong. I'm just saying that the tone of the story itself is not that great to me. Okay? 2, will you change your behavior as a result of your research? If so, how? I mean, based on my research on meat and such, I agree that you can't have your diet, all around animal products, whether that's dairy products or meat itself. So I think that having a balanced diet is the best possible options for me personally, right? So when it comes to changing my behavior, I think a balanced, healthy diet is best. Okay? So that was exercise E, you guys. Now let's move on to the next page. Alright, you guys, so now let's go to exercise A. Here we have building background knowledge. Where do you start with a web research task, right? So if you're gonna do a web research task, where do you start? What do you do? So by this, I mean this is entirely up to you. So for example, do you use Wikipedia? I'm sure everybody is familiar with what Wikipedia is. Why do you use it, or why do you not use it? Okay, so this will be entirely up to you. I could give you a sample as to why I use Wikipedia personally. I'd say that Wikipedia is a good starting point because it has a lot of information and different points of view and opinions. However, it shouldn't be your only source. There's a reason why it's called research. You have to look all over the internet and not just one source. Okay? Now let's go to exercise B, identifying a new skill. Read the text from a university information leaflet on the right, so this one right here. What sort of sites might contain untrue or unreliable information? Make a list. Okay, so before we go here, let me go down to skills check 1 so we can talk about how to basically get the most accurate information on the internet, because as you know, the internet is a big world and there could be a lot of people trying to make money off of you, giving out false information, etc., etc. So you always got to be careful when doing web research. Okay, so let's start with be careful using. So be careful using commercial sites, so things that end with .com, .co, .uk. Okay, these are all commercial sites. They're not necessarily true. Okay, so the information displayed is not always true or 100%. Okay, also personal blogs, because they could be extremely biased. The person writing the blog could be leaning more towards one side than the other, right? Also websites that are owned by newspapers or television stations. We all know why. Okay, so you shouldn't really trust information from newspapers or television stations, as there could be a lot of propaganda on there. Then we have websites from lobbying groups. Not too much to say about that. I don't really trust lobbying groups. Okay, then we have websites from research organizations. And here, it depends, right? So not every research organization is bad, but from a logical standpoint, you'll be able to identify when a research organization is being shady, right? It takes a good research organization to display or give out false information and be able to back it up. Okay? However, now when doing web research, things to look for, things that you're not exactly 100%, but you're about 90% certain that they give good sources and reliable information. So sites which are owned by the government, right? Organizations, like I said before, education, all of these are most likely good sources of information. Also, quotes from qualified people. Everybody knows when a person is qualified to do something, right? So hear what they have to say. They usually know what they're saying and they're a good source about the topic or information. Okay, so now let's go back to exercise B. What sort of sites might contain untrue or unreliable information? Make a list. The list right here. So commercial sites, personal blogs, websites owned by newspapers, websites from lobbying or groups, and websites from research organizations. What sort of sites usually contain true or reliable information? Make another list. That'll be, sites which end in ACL, org, gov, as in government, for example, and quotes from qualified people. Okay, so now let's read the leaflet here, and then we'll move on. Hartford University. Research on the web. The web is a wonderful source of research data. You type a research question into a search engine and get a list of results in milliseconds. But which ones should you click on? Choose carefully. There are many problems with the facts on websites. Whenever you read something on the web, ask yourself, is this information true or reliable? Okay? Now let's go to exercise C, developing critical thinking. Okay. So why are there potential problems with the be careful using websites? Well, we already talked about this, right? As in why you shouldn't trust commercial sites or personal blogs. So just rewind back if you need a little refresher. Okay. Why are the sources in look for in skills check 1 usually good? Again, we said why, because sites which end in ACL, EDUL, they're for the most part good sources. Okay? And also quotes from qualified people. When you know that someone is qualified, qualified people don't lie unless they're going to make a ton of money off of it. So for the most part, you know that they're giving out, reliable information. What else do we have? I think that's about it for exercise C. Now let's go to exercise D, identifying a new skill 2. What is wrong with each sentence on the right? Think about the grammar, so let's read it. Sites which they have the extension .com are commercial sites. Okay, so for one, we know that there's an extra they, or I should say pronoun, that we don't need. Okay, so I'll say sites which have the extension. Be careful. Or actually, sorry. Sites which have the extension .com are commercial sites. Okay, let's go to number 2. Be careful using sites which they are owned by newspapers. Again, an extra pronoun that we absolutely do not need. So we have they. If we get rid of it, it'll sound something like this. Be careful using sites which are owned by newspapers. Okay? Let's read skills check 2 and see what we're going to do about it. So skills check 2, information after which and that. So keep in mind the word which and the word that. So writers often give more information about a noun or a noun phrase with which or that. And I'll give you an example in a second. There is no difference in meaning between the two words in this context. So no difference in meaning. It's good to know. So here's an example. Meat, which is processed. You see, now I get rid of the pronoun, right? I don't need to add an it or a they or a he or a she, right? In this case, meat is enough, okay? So meat, which is processed, I'll go straight to maybe. I don't need to say it again, right? I already know what I'm talking about. So meat, which is processed, may be more dangerous for your health than unprocessed meat. Okay? 2, studies which were conducted by who? Okay? You see, I'm using which here, right? I'm giving more information about the noun or noun phrase with which or that. So I'm using which here. Were conducted by who? Found. Okay, so again, I don't need the extra pronoun. It has no use. So I'll say studies which were conducted by who found the link between processed meat and premature death. Okay? One more. However, there is other research that, okay, so in this one we're using that, not which, that disproves these findings. So again, no need for the pronoun. One more thing, the noun can be the subject or the object, complement in the sentence. It really doesn't matter, so it can be the subject or the object. However, there is no subject after which or that. So whenever you see which or that, as in here or here, there is no subject after that. Okay? Now let's go to exercise E, recognizing which/that clauses. So underline the whole of the clause beginning with which and that. So we'll start with the beginning of which and that, and we'll basically underline the whole clause. Let's take a look. 1, as in A, stories that contain sensational language should be verified. So stories that, so we'll start from that, we'll say that contain sensational language, and we'll stop here. That is the whole clause, with which. Okay? B, sites which are managed by universities are a good source of research information. So sites, and then I have which, so I'll start with which, then I'll keep going, which are managed by universities, and I'll stop here. Okay? C, a newspaper which is controlled, I'll start at which, and then I'll keep going, is controlled by a national government, and I'll stop here. May not be a reliable source. Okay? Let's go to D. Research results which are exaggerated give people the wrong impression about an issue. So research results, I'll start with which are exaggerated, and then I'll stop here. Okay? E, websites that are not reliable should not be used for research. So one more time, websites, and then I'll start with that are not reliable, and I'll stop here. Okay? F, quotes which don't come from experts in the field are not very valuable. So quotes, and then which, I'll start here, don't come from experts in the field, and I'll stop. Okay? I think that's about it. What else do we have? 2, sentences with which/that come from 2 basic sentences. Work out the 2 basic sentences for each sentence above. You will need to add extra words. Okay. We'll say, for 1, we'll say some stories contain sensational language. They should be verified. Okay, so when you remove which or that, you get 2 sentences. Okay, 2 very basic sentences. Okay, now let's go to B. Sites which are managed by universities. Okay, so if I'm going to change it to 2 sentences, I'll say some sites are managed by universities. I'll stop, and then I'll say they are a good source of research information. Okay? C, what do we have? A newspaper which is controlled by a national government may not be a reliable source. So I'll say some newspapers are controlled by a national government, and I'll stop here. And then the second one, these may not be a reliable source. D, research results which are exaggerated give people the wrong impression about an issue. So I'll say some research results are exaggerated. I'll stop, then I'll say they give people the wrong impression about an issue. Alright, you guys? E, websites that are not reliable should not be used for research. Some websites are not reliable. I'll stop. They should not be used for research. And then F, quotes which don't come from experts in the field are not very valuable. So I'll say some quotes don't come from experts in the field. I'll stop, and then I'll say they are not very valuable. Okay? Now let's take a quick look at the vocab box. Here we have commercial, expert, extension, field, lobbying group, potential, quote, research organization, and underestimate. Okay? So that was the second part of the reading section, you guys. Now let's move on. Alright, you guys, so now let's move on to the final part of this reading section. Let's start with exercise A. Here we have reviewing vocabulary. So complete each sentence with a suitable word in the space in the correct form. Okay, so we're going to choose a suitable word, obviously from the lesson, okay, and in the correct form. So we might have to add like an S, for example. Okay? 1. Journalists are often not dash in a particular field. Well, knowing that journalists are people that write about stuff, we'll say that journalists are often not, and then we'll say experts, right, in a particular field. 2. They sometimes dash the findings of research. We actually have it, no we don't actually. We don't have the word exaggerate here. Exaggerate means to make something bigger or a lot more controversial than it already is, okay? So we'll say exaggerate, okay? So they sometimes exaggerate the findings of research. 3. Organizations which fund research often have a dash interest in the results. We'll say organizations which fund research often have, and we'll use the word vest, right? But vested, okay? Organizations which fund research often have a vested interest in the results. 4. Newspaper editors often use dash language to attract the attention of their readers. In this case, we'll use the word sensational. Sensational. Okay? Sensational language as in language that tries to attract your attention as much as possible. 5. You should look for dash from experts. We'll say you should look for quotes. Okay? Basically, a quote from an expert is basically 95% out of 100. It's true. Okay? 6. Writers of websites sometimes dash research findings by quoting only part of the results. Now you see how writers can play you. We'll say misrepresent. So misrepresent. Okay? 7. A lot of information on the web about an important subject is not, this is a pretty simple one, we'll use the word reliable. Okay? There are a lot of websites from dash groups which are trying to influence government actions. We'll say, remember when we talked about lobbying groups? So there are a lot of websites from lobbying groups which are trying to influence government actions. Let's take a quick look at the vocab box before we move on. We have commercial, expert, extension, field, lobbying group, potential, quote, research organization, and underestimate. Okay? Now let's go to exercise B, understanding an assignment. Read the assignment on the right. Let's take a look. Department of Media Studies, Assignment 2, Media Analysis. Recent media reports have claimed that sugar in our diets is as dangerous as smoking and eating processed meat. Study the extracts from websites on the handout for this assignment. 1. Cross out any texts which you do not think are reliable sources. 2. Underline information which you find convincing. 3. Box examples of exaggeration or misrepresentation. Use a pencil because you may change your mind. Be prepared to explain your choices. Pretty cool assignment if you ask me. So what sort of things on the handout will you cross out, underline, and box? Alright, so in order to answer this, we're going to have to read all of these. So one more time just before we start, okay? We're going to try and cross out any text that me or you do not think is a reliable source, okay? And we talked about what are reliable sources. Underline information which you find convincing. So anything that convinces you, just underline it. And simply box examples of exaggeration or misrepresentation as you see fit. Alright? So I want you to pause the video, read it on your own, and solve this. And then come back and let's do it together. So A, the Linda Smith Organics Range. Buy online or in any good health food shop. Sugar kills, says scientists. Did you know? Sugar affects your body's ability to resist disease. Sugar damages the balance of your body's helpful minerals. Sugar makes adolescents behave badly. Then we have the link at the bottom. B. Cigarettes or sugar, which is the bigger killer? You've probably never thought about it, but it is more dangerous to put a cigarette in your mouth or a spoonful of sugar. Or actually, sorry, but is it more dangerous to put a cigarette in your mouth or a spoonful of sugar? Statistics show that cigarettes are extremely dangerous. They kill about 5 million people a year, according to figures from around the world. But for many years, doctors told us that cigarettes were not harmful, and some even said there were health benefits to smoking. Is it possible that sugar is in the same category? A hidden killer in our midst? Yes, it is. Not many doctors admit it, but there are more and more studies that demonstrate the link between sugar and obesity. And obesity kills 17 million people every year. Do the math. Sugar is more than 3 times as dangerous as cigarettes. Okay? And we have a normal website ending in .com. Keep that in mind. Okay? C. According to Dr. Winston Jones, head of Hartford's Public Health Service, sugar is extremely dangerous. Dr. Jones believes that national governments should control the use of sugar in food and drink because it is as addictive as nicotine, which is in cigarettes and other drugs such as heroin. There should be a tax on sugar to limit its use, he says, and it should be banned from some products which are aimed at children. He points out that people stop consuming other nutrients such as carbohydrates and protein when they're full. But people become addicted to sugar and continue eating even when their body has been satisfied. Okay, this looks like it's quoting someone else, probably the news. Okay, so this is the news quoting someone by the name of Dr. Winston Jones. D. According to a study in the Journal of Public Health, people who consume a lot of sugar increase their risk of dying from heart disease. This is true even when they are not obese. During a study which lasted 15 years, researchers found that the risk of heart disease was raised by 50% of their diets, if their diets were high in sugar. The correlation was exact. As the percentage of sugar rose, the odds increased. The finding was regardless of other factors, such as gender, level of exercise, age, or weight. Okay, so this looks like a study. E. Does sugar really kill you? This is an ad, by the way, an advert. Get the facts from the company you can trust with your health. Right. Pretty interesting read. Now let's see what we're going to cross out. So, what do you guys think is an unreliable source? For me, I definitely have to start with A, because it's just insane to me. This looks like a commercial organization. The fact that, it's way too bad. Sugar is not that bad. Just my opinion, obviously, depending on how much you eat and how you control how you control it and how your diet looks. So this is over exaggerated as hell. So we'll say that this is a commercial organization. Also, let's take a look at E. This is an advert, so that this is not a reliable source. Okay. What else do we have? Let's move on to underline. So let's underline information which we find, or I found, convincing. Okay, so the most unbiased texts are probably. Let's take a look at C. I'll say C and D because D is a study, right? And this is a quote from someone that probably knows what they're saying. So Dr. Winston Jones. Okay, so probably C and D for me. What else? But by the way, we're not underlining the whole thing. We're just underlining. We could underline parts of it. Okay. 3. Box examples of exaggeration or misrepresentation. Okay. Let's take a look at B here. Look at this. So, paragraph 1. You've probably never thought about it, but is it more dangerous to put a cigarette in your mouth or a spoonful of sugar? This is exaggerated. Super exaggerated. I'm not even kidding. Okay? What else do we have? Also the word, I think we have it, yeah, right here. Hidden killer. The fact that you're calling sugar, right, a macronutrient that is used by your body for energy as a hidden killer that seems exaggerated to me. Okay? So, yeah. I think that's about it. Yeah, so that was cross out, underline, and box. Now let's go to exercise C, doing web research. Okay, so now we're going to have to do the assignment. And if you're in class, then compare your answers in groups, explain your choices, right? But also be prepared to change your decision if you feel convinced by someone else. Okay? I think that's about it. Yeah, we already did the whole thing, the cross out, underline, and box. So that's the assignment. Now let's go to exercise D, checking comprehension. Okay. Here are some facts from the texts. Okay, so these are all facts from the texts here. Do you think each one is false, accurate, exaggerated, underestimated, or misrepresented? I'm pretty sure you guys know what all of these mean, so we'll hop right in. Okay, so 1, sugar kills 17 million people a year worldwide. So I don't, yeah, I have it right here. Not many doctors admit it, but there are more and more studies that demonstrate the link between sugar and obesity kills 17 million people per year. So, I'd say that there's no evidence for this, right? We know that obesity kills this number, and sugar is a contributor to obesity, but other things also contribute to obesity, such as lack of exercise and laziness. Okay? So I'd say, this is not the case. Okay? 2, sugar is addictive. Okay. We'll say, Dr. Jones says it. We have it right here. Okay, Dr. Winston Jones says so. We'll probably say that he is an expert, so this is probably accurate. Okay? 3, sugar causes children to behave badly. I would never believe something like this. So I think this was, oops, sorry. This was from a site that is probably trying to sell you stuff, as you can see here. So buy online or in any good health food shop. Okay? So, I'd say this is not reliable. Okay? Sugar causes heart disease. Interesting. We'll actually say that we have evidence here because it's a study. So it is probably true, but under certain conditions, and there are other factors that come into play, right? Such as gender, level of exercise, age, and weight. Alright, so that was exercise D. Now let's take a look at the vocab box before we go to exercise E. Vocab box: accurate, addictive, admit, adolescent, demonstrate, factor, obesity, odds, regardless, statistic, and stuff. Okay? Now let's go to exercise E, relating theory to personal life. Are you going to change your behavior as a result of any research for this lesson? Me personally, I already watch my diet. I like to know exactly what I'm eating, so sometimes I do consume a lot of sugar, but it's not daily, and I'm not obese, so I think that plays a huge part in my health. But if you're someone that eats candy and Snicker bars all day, every day, I think that's maybe you're gonna have to change your eating habits. So this is entirely up to you. There's no right answer here, obviously. That's about it. So this was reading, you guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.